Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, live show number 401. I must apologize first to Mr. Robert Cole, who thought I was going to do something exceptionally different for show number 400 last week, and I did not. Other than being here in the Netherlands, and last week being the second show in the Netherlands, I really didn't do much of a difference, mainly just because I'm in the Netherlands. So, Robert, I promised you when I get back to the States, we will do a show worthy of the transition of the 300s to the 400s. And even though we're still in our 9th year, our 10th year will click into August of this year, which we will have a big blowout at that point, I can assure you. But for right now, we'll just have to wait for the festivities to be another time. Thank you, everyone, for joining me live. And thank you for letting me know that in the last show, the lamp you see behind me, which is in the backdrop of where we're staying, was behind me directly, and I was told that I had a bit of a halo. So I've shifted the camera slightly off so that in the case, I am wearing a Hospitality Club t-shirt for my logoed event this way, and I'm using a lavalier mic, so I apologize if it is modulated. I'll find that out after the end of the show as to how well it sounded. That's why I'm talking very calm right now, because from what it was looking like, the audio was a little rambunctious, and I tried to turn it down. But anyway, thank you everyone for joining us live this Friday, April 14th. And today's topic is actually inspired from the traveling that I'm doing right now, being here in the Netherlands, being in a country that I don't speak the language, and using technology to get around, which I'll talk about at some point with a really cool, well, actually, on the podcast, we'll be talking about it today. What am I saying? It's a neat set of earbuds from a company called Time Kettle. And basically you put the earbuds in and it listens and it'll translate with latency from the language that you've said to listen for, in this case Dutch, to English. And it is humorous at times. I'd say it's about 70-75% accurate, but it does help you get past some of the listening to the news on the TV, being in an open area where people are talking in Dutch. Although nicely, most Dutch people speak English, so that's no problem. So anyways, we'll talk about that on the podcast and some technologies about that. But today's topic for the live show is really befitting the travel experiences that I'm having. In the process of traveling, I've come to make a distinction between two words, which is the inspiration of our topic today. Discovery versus discovering. What's the difference? With any trip of the magnitude that we're doing, and we're gone for several weeks from being in the United States here to the Netherlands, and we'll be going to Belgium and so forth, was the process of discovery. Oh, excuse me. See, I'm even confusing them now. Discovering. Discovering was, where are we going to go? What do we want to do if we're there? Where are our options of staying? What are our options of eating? What are things that we are looking for when we decided to be in what will be Brussels in a few weeks? Was obviously, well, if we're choosing to be in Brussels, what would we be doing there? If we chose to do those things, where would be a convenient place to stay? It's a progression that all of us in travel go through. We've talked about this many times on the show as to the progression of travel. Discovery, education, and then conversion. And this discovering process, is directed to answering questions. Very fundamental questions initially, like where to stay, how to get there, where to eat, things like this. And that discovering process goes through what we offer as content as hospitality professionals. The information that we provide about our accommodations, the information we provide about our amenities, the information that we provide about ancillary services and so forth. That is all content that is given up for the discovering process. However, the reality of once that discovery process is formulated into a conversion, the conversion now becomes into a discovery process. And that is, for instance, say for instance, I was going to go through an airport hotel, and you were offering an airport stay and go for my car. Well, that's wonderful. I think that's great. I get to bring my car and park it at the hotel. and then stay at the hotel. And then it looks like there's a shuttle. That's an amenity that brings me to the airport for my travels. But that discovering process is great. That converted me to book the program. The discovery process is then into, well, what's the criteria? Like, do I stay the night that I'm there, or do I stay the night when I get back to qualify for the program? How many days total can the car stay there? The shuttle program, is it running every hour, every half hour, every 15 minutes? Is it on demand? Is it scheduled? How long does it take? How many stops does it have? How much should I anticipate the planning process of taking the shuttle to get to the airport? Is it on one of 15 stops, and it's going to take an hour to get from the hotel that I'm staying at to the terminal that I have to leave from? These turns into the discovery process. I can honestly say that the discovery process is where we fall short in a lot of ways, in content-wise. It gets exacerbated through language changes, because where we naturally assume, especially in the States, that English must be understood to be used, and that's a very fair assumption to this, it often doesn't translate correctly. I find it very humorous, and again, in our podcast, we talk about the technology that I'm using and so forth. The literal translation versus the intended communication is very different. We've made fun of Google and Yahoo and Bing for years in the translation process, Apple, where they literally translate the words, but the meaning gets lost in that literal translation, because the context of the sentence is not the literal words of the sentence, and no better language personifies that than English. The words we use aren't necessarily the best intent. Think of the word bean and bin. Sounds similar, may not translate correctly. For that reason, the discovery process of interpreting what it is that you're learning, clarifying what it is information-wise has been given to you, gets lost, especially when there's language that's involved with it, or cultural changes that happen with it as well. And trips to China, being told by a previous traveler, don't look for your hotel's driver when you exit the security. There's a lot of fake drivers that are dressed in uniform with all the right logos on all their cards, and they look everything that they should to be the driver from your hotel, except they're not, and that they will scam you and drive you far away and then charge you a very large amount of money to get you back to a safe place. Had I not known that, I would have never known that when I walked out the door, because it really truly looks like, oh wow, there's a driver for the transportation to my hotel right there. Hey, I'm staying at your hotel. Great, hop in. Poof, and the next thing you know, bad story. This discovery process, this inside information, we don't often share well. We've tried FAQs. We've tried translating content into another language, thinking that it would be easier for people to understand more natively. And that's a wonderful thing that we have done. Sometimes we don't use the best translation services and it doesn't help. But even if we did use advanced human translation services, a lot of times it is on purpose vague, so that we don't have to get held to exactly verbatim what we said, because it might change for us. And so we give ourselves that latitude, saying, well, we didn't say it was going to be exactly at 8:05 the shuttle was going to be. We said it would usually be 5 minutes after the top of the hour, give or take. Translating that into an accuracy is rough. So we actually built in vagueness of our information that we use for people's discovery of the clarification intentionally, which only creates problems. I can tell you honestly that for not knowing the signage, not knowing the protocols of things, not knowing the variations of language, simply the reading of the signs. And yes, we have technology, and again, we'll talk about it on the podcast, where you can hold up Google Translate, turn the camera on, and it does an amazing job of literally changing the sign to English for you. Sometimes that doesn't really help, because the words that they use don't make sense for the way they've been translated. So you begin to learn markers, non-verbal markers. And all of this goes back to the discovery process of taking what we were discovering and finding a place to stay, finding a means to get there, finding a place to eat, and then the discovery of what that legitimate content really is. So that's the big difference, is discovering what you need is the content we provide via our websites, our content that we share, our emails, our CRM, our communications for advertisement, and so forth. But the discovery process of the detail, the nuances, the things that aren't normally known. Now, this is where this paradox comes up. You've seen so many efforts, and we're going to see more of them with AI, especially being in our business now, that all of this regurgitated content, the 5 secrets to a happy visit to XYZ town or destination. Let me be honest about this. When we say if it's a secret, by announcing what it is, it's no longer a secret. I take a case example when traveling to Italy. We went to go see the Statue of David. And I shared this in the show a couple of weeks back, where we stood in the very long line that looked like the line to get into the Statue of David. And we were spending several hours not moving very far along, but I kept seeing a parade of people being brought over to the door adjacent to the one we were waiting to get into, and then escorted back in and so forth. And I caught one of them and says, "What is that door for?" He says, "Oh, we went to see the Statue of David." I'm like, "Wait a minute, so are we?" She says, "Oh, no, you don't want to be in this line. This line is for all the people that are waiting for when the people that I went through with, there's space for them to add more people to that." What it was is understanding that this is how you went to see the Statue of David, but this is the discovery of how to see the Statue of David. So sharing that as the secret of seeing the Statue of David meant that everybody now knew that was the case of how to do it, and it no longer turned into a secret. It's better not to try to reveal unknown things as it is to go over and share what needs to be known. That discovery volunteering of content is a critical component that I think we're missing as an industry. We intentionally, as I mentioned, stay vague so that we have wiggle room in people's expectations of us. Well, we didn't say exactly this, or we didn't mean exactly that, or we said that this was an effort of, or that we would have available of, or coming soon, or whatever way we try to spin our way out of the fact that we didn't satisfy an expectation of a guest. Realistic or not, it still is a reality for those people that they thought it was something in particular that it didn't materialize to. I don't want to get into that nuance of expectations over versus delivery, but I want to get into the real value proposition as hospitality professionals of providing the value of the discovery process after they discovered us. After the discovering of what they were going to do and we become a part of that plan, our ability to overshare content that helps them understand the granularity of their trip. I've watched people when we first got card key doors at the hotels I was running. When we handed them the card, they didn't understand what to do with it, and they were too embarrassed to ask. And they just came back to the lobby. It's like, this doesn't work. And we go up to the door and it worked just fine. They're like, "You just saw this relief on the place." Like, "Oh, it's a slot thing." Oh. And once that was done, then there was never a problem. But we missed sharing that because it was very early on that we had cards to use as keys at doors rather than actual keys. Yes, that goes that far back for me. The Wi-Fi, not knowing the password, not sharing it, not putting it in a way that people can understand it. So now they have to, they're made up to the room. They see that there's Wi-Fi available, but they don't know how to connect. And now there's a disappointment that they now have to come back downstairs and find out the information they need. It's these missing pieces in a follow-through process of what is the discovery process of our guests to ensure that we have a fully realized expectation fulfillment for their stay with us. A lot of times, breakfast included. What does that mean? I can tell you in different countries, it's different ways. For instance, when we first arrived here and went our first show where I had the very noisy lobby behind us, breakfast required that we had to show our ID because we had to identify ourselves as the legitimate guests of the room number. We could tell them the room number. We had to tell them our name, and then we had to prove that that was our name. The reason being is that breakfast was very robust, and anybody in the surrounding area, if walking in and made it convincing enough, could make it seem like they were a guest of the hotel if they knew room numbers or whatever, or overheard somebody mention their last name or something by the front desk, and they could walk in and get a free breakfast. So this was an additional security of the going to the breakfast. Now, and in itself, it was different compared to when we're, say, at a Hampton Inn or someplace else, which I call the breakfast trough. That it's a, walk in and it's all laid out buffet style, heap and happen kind of stuff. There's no hostess or host to check in with. Where at this place for breakfast, you had to wait, just like any restaurant that you would get seated for, to be identified and then seated. And that was your table. Other nuance, it didn't mean because you were given that table, then it stayed your table. If you didn't indicate that there was somebody at the table, flipping your napkin open or getting a cup of coffee and putting it in your seat, we came back one of the first days, and the table that we were assigned had somebody else in it. And we went to go to another table, which was somebody else's table. When we go back to the host, it's like, our table was taken. She's like, and she goes over to the people, and the other host must have seated them because they thought it was an empty table. These little details are the things that you don't want to drone on with somebody or have a long list of this is how we do it kind of stuff. But this is the casual way of FAQs, and with the new advent of AI, the ability for bots to kind of answer the questions through, like, okay, so what's breakfast in the morning like? And then do a video perhaps say, hey, well, first off, we asked you to check in with our hostess. They're going to ask you for your room number, your last name, and then verification that you are who you are. At which point you'll be given a table, but make sure you leave something on the table that shows that it's occupied, so that when you go get your food, you can come back to your table and it may not have been seated to somebody else. This kind of little details can be available to them. And this goes to two good reasons. One, it's helpful to people that are culturally out of place. And second, it also, if they come and say, I didn't know any of this was supposed to happen, and I went to go get breakfast, and this and this and this happened, to be like, well, it was available for our information for you on there. You could look in and look on the FAQs if you wanted to understand how we handle breakfast. There was a whole little section here. We had a little video that told you how to do this. This ability to overshare so that the discovery process is available to the guests that want to understand how often your shuttle runs, or how do you do breakfast in the mornings, or the fact that you have to leave a key in the space beside the door so that the electronics of the room stay on while you're in the room. And tell me that you, when you first were exposed to that, didn't know that. You go in the room, none of the light switches work, you're thinking everything's broken. And then they didn't mention the fact that, you're looking to see what's that card holder next to the door, and maybe there wasn't even a sign over that said what to do, and you put your room key in, and the lights came on. It's the silly little details, that little thing that's made it so much easier to just know that that was the case. Same story, different hotel. You went to go into the airport shuttle, you see it pulling in, you're like, oh, what great luck of mine, I'm coming down, I want to get to the shuttle. And you go out to the shuttle and they're like, what's your name? It's like, what do you mean? Do you have a reservation for this ride? No, I just need to get the shuttle to the airport. I'm sorry, this shuttle's full. You need to check with the desk when the next shuttle is. They're like, no, that's not right. I need to get the shuttle to get to the airport now. And it's like, I'm sorry, but the shuttle is full. And if somebody doesn't show up, you can wait and see if it. That's literally what happened to me. Not here, but in other travels. I was unaware of the fact that the shuttle was in such high demand, especially for the time that I was looking to go for it, that I should have asked, does the shuttle require reservations? Or is it scheduled at regular intervals that I would just be able to show up for, or do I need to sign up for it so that I'm on the list? Many hotel shuttles, because of the high demand cycles, request that, for especially the morning slots and the high yield times that people are traveling, that you at the front desk inquire about the shuttles. They show you the schedule. You add yourself to the time that you would like to get the shuttle, so you make adequate time to the airport, and that way you ensure your seat on the shuttle. For seasoned travelers, That's not a big question. That's just and if you ask an airport, like, hey, do I have to sign up for a shuttle ride in the morning to make sure I have a seat? And they're like, no, 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 it's plenty, you're fine, whatever. But at least you ask. Not a lot of people know that. Just the same reason why when you see people that aren't familiar with air travel and they're in the security line and they're with their jackets and their shoes, and you can see that they have a big spray bottle in their hand and they're holding onto a bottle of water, you're saying, I don't want to be behind them in line, because they're not going to make it through the line. It's going to slow down. They got to repack, throw stuff away, take their shoes off, jackets, whatever it is, because they don't travel very often. You can tell by their luggage and how they're walking, carrying things, and so forth. You want to be behind the businessman. If you ever watched that movie with George Clooney, that always behind the businessman, they're already flipping their shoes off as they're going up to the ramp. Their suitcase is already flipped open. They pull out their laptop. It's put into a tray bin. They know the routine. Any experienced flight person knows the routine. They know the routine. They know what they have to do. They know where their fluids are out, and they have their laptop and their iPad out and everything, and they get through the line, gets put, slapped back together, shoes slip back on, and they're out the door. You want to be behind those people. That experience, that data, that content that makes the trip that much more enjoyable, because those things aren't out of place for you, is the discovery of the details, the undefined revelations of something you were not aware of, the destination information, the things that are not known in general, the things that you should add to your plans. It never fails that when I travel, for the hotels that have little brochure racks, and you're like, oh my God, brochure racks. I mean, are they still around? Yeah, they're still around. Not everywhere. A lot of independent hotels tend to have them because somebody local is still generating them. I have never, and this is a 100% never, have gone to one of those racks that I didn't find something that did not have a website. I can tell you in Florida, there's always Joe's Bait, Tackle, and Dave fishing trips. No website, just brochures. And if not, then the local people know, oh, you want a great boat trip out for fishing? Joe's Tackle over there, go there. That's how they do business. They don't have too much business. They have just enough business. They don't need a website. They don't even know what to do with a website. They still exist like this. China was the same thing. And you think of all things in China, everything would have a website. They had a QR code, but that was the thing. It had a brochure rack. It had information that wasn't just something I could have discovered before I arrived. I discovered it once I got there. And nobody wants to miss the biggest ball of twine next door had you not found out that it was there to begin with. It's so frustrating. My first experience was at our hotel in Florida that we purposely, it was to the detriment of the hotel and something I didn't want to do, but the ownership wanted to do it, purposely did not talk about the restaurants around the hotel. We wanted to capture all the restaurant usage in the restaurants we had at the hotel. It was a very poor, bad choice because it irritated so many people to find out that the #1 rated grouper sandwich in all of Florida was in a restaurant dive bar, literally walking distance from our hotel. But our hotel did not share that information. And when people found out and discovered that they missed it, and that they deliberately blamed the hotel for not having told them. You don't want to be that person. You want to share that information. I have conversations with clients all the time that in addition to offering a promotion about something, and the details of the promotion, you get this percentage off these room types, and this is included with it, and the amenities that you receive with it, does include breakfast, does include this, does include the shuttle, whatever it is that is important for the package offer. I also ask, is there things about them being with you that they should know about in general context? Flip2's done a great job with a new rollout that they've done. I'm trying to pitch something, but just to know that these things are in our industry now. Their discovery program, where they're now including events and information about things that are happening in the market of the hotel that you're staying at during the dates that you've selected. They can pull in the and also show you things that are on the peripheries of your dates to tell you, well, if you extend by one day, you could go to the Taylor Swift concert if you have tickets, or this event's going to be happening soon if you stay an extra day or 2 days or whatever, or you shift your stay by 2 or 3 days. And that influence, that data, is a huge influence on your travel plans, especially for transient travel. You don't want to find out that you showed up 2 days before a thing that you would love to have seen or been a participant of, and you're leaving 2 days beforehand, and not only can you extend your stay because it's no longer available, But you could have maybe done that when you first booked, but you didn't know that it was actually happening. That awareness, that contribution of information, I tried it way back years ago. It was a manual entrance of data that was just crazy, sending an email to people as they stayed saying, this is the information on these dates. And since you're staying on these dates, this is things that you could do if you're interested. It was very labor intensive. Thank goodness technology has worked that out for Flip2. That is no longer the case. So the idea of the discovery of content to understand the best way to enjoy your stay, your travels, whether it be for business, whether it be for, it's a terrible thing to say. It's not a terrible thing to say. It's the reality of when you go to conferences, there's people that have gone to the conference that you're now attending many times in that location, perhaps, and they know the restaurant around the corner is way better than the restaurant you're staring at. The taxi service that has the blue cars is way better and a lot cheaper and cleaner and nicer than the taxis that have the yellow cars. The Uber spot for the airport is actually down 2 floors, not ground floor, down 2 floors over to the parking garage. To the left, there's the Uber zone. As anybody that's traveled enough to know, when Uber was and all the ride services were created, there's the normal taxi lanes that existed. And then there's the Uber places for people to pick up. And airports were trying to figure out a way to declutter all these Uber cars that were trying to pick people up in the arrivals area. So they designated areas for the ride sharing services to get them out of the congestion of people that were picking up friends and family. That could be at any place. Sometimes it was in a convenient place. Sometimes it was in it's on that side of the airport, up 3 floors, out to the parking garage, second level up, kind of what? A lot of that isn't always general information. And it was kind of wait a minute, I'm on this side of the airport, I'm at the arrivals, I'm ready to step outside, and my Uber driver says he has to pick me up there. It won't let me put my pin where I'm at. And then all of a sudden you realize you're actually 10 more minutes away from where you have to go to the Uber car. Those inconveniences, those problems, that discovery of that data is the part that needs to be shared by us as hospitality professionals to put that content in a place that can be used by our users when they go from the discovering of us and the usage of deciding to convert with us and to stay with us and everything else, to then discover what they need to know as the details of their trip gets laid out for them. Okay, when I get off the plane, I'm going to be here in the airport. And how many of us I used to have a great app that would show me the inside of airports, so I know, okay, in this terminal, there's these restaurants. Okay, I knew that this is I want to grab a bite to eat. That's a great place to eat, or there's absolutely nothing worth eating in this terminal. Those things are information rather than having to walk up and down with your suitcase past your gate to figure out what options you had. And usually if you came at the same time, you're piling in with a bunch of other people and you're in a race in front of a whole pile of people that if you don't get into the restaurant before they do, you're going to have to wait after they're done to get back into the same restaurant because you didn't know which way to go. That makes the difference in trips. It sounds silly, it's little, but it's so critical that we can help our guests understand better. Hey, most flights for Southwest come through Terminal H. Terminal H in our airport right now is under renovation. There really is nothing more than a bagel shop. Why not let us give you a to-go lunch that will go through security, okay, that you don't have to worry about not having a place to eat once you get into the terminal if you're getting in early. Make that as information in your shuttles, okay? Or better yet, show how to get to the shuttle in your arrival letter, your pre-arrival letter of, okay, guys, once you land, you'll be probably coming through these terminals, regardless of where it is. This is where our shuttle goes, gate 5. On arrivals, downstairs, past baggage claim, to the left, gate 5 is where the shuttle comes in. How many times have you gone to an airport that you haven't been into before? And you walk outside and you're looking for where the rideshare services come in, or taxi services come in, or hotel shuttle buses come in, and or buses to get to the places. How many times rented cars are not even close to it? You have to go to another area, another parking area, or another part of the airport to get rent-a-car services. So you need to get on the rent-a-car buses first to get out there. By the time you figure this out, because you didn't think about asking or it wasn't shared with you, then all of a sudden you're that much farther behind your schedule or that much more frustrated that you're wandering around tired, dragging a suitcase, late in the day, more worried about trying to get to a hotel so you can basically get ready for while you're there, on and on and on. I don't mean to digress with the divergence of it, but I'm trying to give enough examples so that you understand how important it is to understand the difference between discovering, which is the process if you're planning initially of your trip, discovering what your hotel is, discovering the destination you're going to, discovering where you're going to eat, discovering how you're going to get there, and the discovery of the things that you didn't know to make that stay, make that travel enjoyable, stress-free, and more to add to the positive of, man, you know what? That was pretty cool. I really felt I understood what was going on. I didn't get confused. I wasn't disappointed with anything. Everything seemed to be what I was told. There was no some bad surprises. And I truly enjoyed my trip, and I'll probably want to go back. And that's the story I will tell my friends. That's the things I'll share with them. It's like, man, this hotel hooked me up. Once I decided where I was going and where I was going to stay, it let me know about the restaurant I ate. It let me know about how to get to the shuttle that I needed to get to them. It told me how to get around town. It told me the things I should have missed, and the fact that there was an event that they made me stay. They offered me to stay an extra day, and I got to go to the event that I enjoyed. That's the part of discovery that we need to add into our content with our guests. So there you have it. Experiences of my travels so far translated to shows for us to talk about better ways of being better hospitality professionals. For those of us that watch me on the simulcast of Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, It's Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. I think I got all those. Oh, Twitch, in case you watch your media on gaming consoles. And of course, those that watch us on our TV channel, the Hospitality Channel, which you can find on Roku, your Roku TV, your Amazon TV, your Google TV, your Apple TV, Samsung TV, LG TV, any smart TV, look for Hospitality Channel. And the live show, this is always on the free side. Now, our podcast today will be talking about technology of translations, the means to travel internationally where you don't know the language, which I'm terrible. I've tried to learn a language my entire life outside of English, and I haven't done very well with English. We'll be talking about technologies like Time Kettle and iTranslate and Google Translate and so forth and so on, which ones are better, which ones are worse, what have you, and how they work in your travel experiences. Of course, if you have the propensity to learn an alternate language, I would highly recommend that over the translation services. As helpful as they are, being able to actually understand the language firsthand and use it, much more beneficial. And you'll find that people are much more warming when you're trying to actually speak their language. As bad as you may do it, they see the effort. They appreciate the effort. I have tons of stories to share about that with my wife, who speaks several languages and helps me through this process quite regularly. So with that, thank you for watching us on the simulcast, or thank you for watching us on our TV channel, and thank you for coming to listen to us on our podcast after this. If you want to know all the previous shows listed by date of broadcast and or guest hosts and or topics, you can go to our Forever I Love Lucy rerun website, which is hospitalitychannel.tv. If you have any feedback, comments, or suggestions of content, please, I welcome all of them at Loren at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com. And of course, if you want to join our hospitality club, which is for peer-level hospitality professionals for marketing, then go to hospitalitymarketing.club. Put your email in. I send you a quiz. If you pass the quiz, which shows proficiency in hospitality marketing, because it's a peer relationship. We're not here to teach you hospitality marketing basics. You have to already understand the basics and be doing it to be a part of the peer group, to actually have the dialogue that the peer group has for improving your hospitality marketing skills. And that is hospitalitymarketing.club. So for that, again, my name is Loren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time and look forward to talking to you all next week.